Hey guys, what's going on? Today I'm bringing you guys a tutorial on, I see a lot of people trying to teach expressions in Adobe After Effects, and they do it in kind of a very dry way where it's like, here, I'm doing this thing, I'm making like this weird counter, and you're gonna make it with me. And I think, I don't know, in my personal opinion, that's not the way that I learn, and that's not the way I see a lot of other people learn. So basically what this series is gonna be is me showing you guys and teaching you how to use Adobe After Effects expressions, which are incredibly powerful, through a series of examples, real-world case examples for motion graphic designers like myself and other people who have been asking me. A quick background, I'm very systematically programmed as a person, so I naturally love using code to be able to make my work in After Effects a lot more efficient. And hopefully, my goal being, as we go through this series, hopefully you guys will feel the same way, and you'll start to wonder, you know, I can't believe I started to do these things by hand. It's just so much easier to write down a set of rules and have After Effects follow them and effectively do work for me. So with that said, hopefully that gets you a little bit excited to dive into this. This isn't going to be a linear series, so you don't have to watch them in order, although I will be explaining a lot of stuff in these beginning videos to kind of, get everyone up to speed. No matter if you know nothing about expressions or if you know a little bit about expressions, I'll be teaching from the ground up. So I recommend watching them in order, but you don't exactly have to watch them in order. But anyways, you can make your comp whatever size you want. Today I'm going to be making a tapered line sweep. Big props to Sketch. He kind of inspired me building this effect. Now, from first thought, I think that he probably did this effect through a paid plugin from Tapered called Tapered 3D Stroke. If you have that plugin, totally fine, go ahead and use it. I'm going to be showing you guys how to make that for free using shape layers. So it's the tapered line sweep, and that's pretty much all you need to know. This tutorial is a little bit long. You can skip through, you might miss a few things, you might be a little bit lost, but if you watch all the way through, I guarantee you'll have a better understanding of expressions, which is hopefully why we're here in the first place. So anyways, that's a lot of talking. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm making a new composition called Main Comp. That's just how I always do things. With 1920 1080, yet again, these are all arbitrary. We're going to be learning expressions, so you know, the final video doesn't matter as much as the concepts I'll be talking about. 60 FPS, of course, and simple duration of 5 seconds is nice. Background color doesn't matter. I'm going to leave it as black. And there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is create our base shape for the tapered line. Now, basically, I'm going to break down how we're going to be doing this, and then I'll show you guys how exactly, or I'll tell you like the philosophy behind creating a tapered line, and then I'll show you guys the systematic approach to making a template sweep, tapered line sweep. So I'm going to go ahead and make a line here, and that creates a line. Now, let me turn off the checkered background so you guys can see it. Now by default, After Effects doesn't give you any sort of option over tapering a line. It's just a line, and you can have a stroke on it up here, and you can change the stroke width, and it changes it for the whole line. Now that's a little bit problematic because we want it to kind of fall off and get thinner and eventually just thin out to a point at the ends. And there's no way in After Effects to do this by default, so we're going to get a little tricky with it, and we're going to use expressions to make it dynamic so that we can import this into other projects and use it to our heart's desire. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a very rough idea of how we're going to achieve this. So down here in the shape layer, I'm going to twirl it down. I'm going to go to Contents and this shape right here. Now this shape, if I toggle on and off, that's the shape. Now this path basically tells the shape what shape it is. So if I get my pen tool and I make another one in the middle, I make another point and drag it around, there you go, that's the shape. And if I hold Alt, click and drag on that point, we can thin it out, there you go. Very nice. And let me bring these points in just so we can see all of them. And you don't want to close it off. The reason why it's giving me the close off symbol is because I'm clicked on this last point and it thinks that I'm trying to join these two. So if I just click back to the middle one and then make my way over, I can move it instead of closing it. So there you go. There's a little bit of a fill going on, black fill. So I'm going to go up here to the fill property and click that and click on none. That's going to make sure I don't have a fill on it. I'm going to go ahead and fit my canvas up to the window. Okay, so that's basically that shape layer. It's an unclosed shape layer, and it's just a line at this point. So that's what the path is. The stroke is, well, it's our stroke. That's exactly what that is. And if you twirl open stroke, you have all the same properties that we had a truncated version up here of. So a lot more control over what our stroke looks like. So right away, I'm going to go ahead and do the first thing that'll step us towards making a tapered line, and that is changing a butt cap to a round cap. That's going to give us this nice rounded off look to our line sweep. And that's sort of getting there, but it's like small and it looks like a round cap. Like, it doesn't look like a tapered line. It doesn't come to a point. It doesn't do anything like that. And there's no option for a tapered or a line point in After Effects. So you don't have to worry about the line join because we're not joining any lines. Meter limit, don't worry about that. And dashes. But dashes aren't going to help us in this instance. They're not going to do what we want. So how do we get the tapered line? Well, I'll show you right here. Basically, if we were to close this shape up, close the shape, and then actually inside the shape. So we want to, within the shape, we want to trim, we want to add a trim paths. And the reason why we're doing it inside this shape, let me drag it to the bottom. And the reason why we're doing it inside of this shape and not outside, let me show you what it would be like outside. Hold on, how do I get it? It's a little bit weird trying to get it to the bottom. So the reason why I did it out here is when we're going to be duplicating the shape in a second, we want the trim paths only to affect this shape and not the next iteration that will make a duplication of this. So let's go ahead and put it at the bottom here. And let's trim this path. So there's a start. That's going to trim the front end of it. And there's an end. And we're going to trim the end half of it. So I'm going to bring this down to, let's say, 40 and 40. This is just demonstration. Or, wait, hold on. Yeah, 40. Oh, sorry, I can't do 40 and 40. I do have to do sums of 100. So 40 and 60. That's going to give us this little guy in the middle, and the offset is going to change where that happens. So as you can see, we can offset that. I'm going to leave the offset at 0, so leave it in the middle. And of course, this is just demonstration. We'll get into making the actual tapered line sweep template in just a second. So I'm going to duplicate this shape and put it underneath. It's a little bit hard to get under there, like I said before, but do that. And the shape 2, we're going to go to the trim paths, and we're going to make it, let's say, 30 and 70. All right, and what we're going to do now is open up our stroke and change the stroke width down. Do you see it now? All right, and basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making lots of little steps down, 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 down with the trim paths, and we're going to come to a point at the end, eventually reaching a line, a stroke width of 0 at here, and our original stroke width being what it is here, and then gently bring down the stroke width as we bring out the trim paths. So that's pretty much how we do that. Now, how do we do this systematically? Well, there's one key element to this, and this is where we start diving into expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We don't need it right now. I'm going to take our original shape here, and it has our trim paths on it. So how do we get these two to broaden out each time we make a duplicate of this? Well, what many people don't know is that just in the same way that layers have indexes. Hold on, let me check. Am I recording my audio? Okay. I just got a very scared moment there where I was like, hold on. I've done that before. So just how layers have an index. So see this number right here? That means that shape layer 1 has an index of 1. When I duplicate it, it now has an index of 2 because it's the second layer, and so on and so forth. Now it's 3. You get the idea. So just how layers have indexes. Properties have indexes. So if I were to duplicate, shape 5, I mean, forget that it's called shape 5, but count from the top. So that's the first one, has an index of 1, index of 2, index of 3, index of 4, index of 5. How do you access that index? Well, you can't write the word index because that's going to reference the layers index. What we need to get is the property index. Okay. So here's where it gets a little bit complicated. And there is one element of this I don't quite understand, but I'll show you how to work around that and kind of how I combat it. So let's go ahead and Alt-click the stopwatch of the start position, right? Or, yeah, we'll do that. And let's go ahead and start writing our expression. So let's define some things that we're going to need to use. So and the way you declare variables in expressions, or in this case JavaScript, expressions is the base language of JavaScript, is we write var space the name of the variable. So I'm going to call this property index, and then an equals sign. And everything that comes after the equals sign is going to be what the value of that new variable is going to be. So I'm going to assign property index I'm going to assign to that variable the index of this, the shape 1. So we're going to be using a selector called property group. So first we need to tell it what we're counting from. So we're counting from start right here. So from this point, we need to reference it. So say this property, right? So this property, start, we're going to count up. So we're going to go count up once, one hierarchy, that's the term paths. And we're going to count up a second time to the second hierarchy. So 1, 2, and we're going to put dot property group 2. Okay, now we've selected the shape 1, and all we have to do from here is write dot property index, and that's going to grab the index of the shape 1 with reference to where the expression is. So we're starting here, we're selecting this property, we're counting up, and then we're grabbing the property index of shape 1. All right, very, very simple to understand when it's broken down. It took me a while to figure it out, but if you need to rewatch this section of the video a few times to understand exactly what that did, feel free. But that's the basis of how we're going to do this. Now, here's a little bump in the road. Sometimes counting up doesn't get me to the right place. I put 2 there because we counted up once, twice. But sometimes, and even in this case, I might have to change that to a 3, and I don't know why. So it's going to give us an error here, presumably because of what I just said. So how do I combat that? Well, we can look at this variable right here, and it gave us an error, but I'm going to put the output of the expression to the variable, so property index. So I'm just basically saying this variable that we declared up here, set our start to that variable, to the value of that variable. When you're not defining a variable, like right here where I said property index is equal to this, if I just write the variable, it's going to say, okay, that's the output of this expression. We're going to make the value of this property the output of the expression. So it's going to give us an error here, and that's because property group is a little bit tricky, and I don't know why, but sometimes it thinks it's probably referencing this right here. I don't know 2 should count up to the right place, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's one thing I don't understand. If you guys can clear that up for me, maybe, you know, maybe you can. That would be very helpful. But I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this shape a few times, just so this is effectively index of 7. And I'm just gonna play around with this number. I'm gonna bring up to 3. Okay, it's gonna give us an error. Maybe it's 4. 4. No. Property index can't be used on this property. Okay. Is it probably 1? No. Property index can't be used on this property. Why is that? Oh, okay. I know exactly what the problem is. So the name of our variable is the .property index function. You have to pick a variable that's unique. So I'm gonna, instead of property index, which is an actual function in JavaScript in this case, I'm going to name it prop index. So there's no confliction. So prop index. All right, there you go. And now I'm going to fiddle around with the count up of property group to find out how I'm going to reference the shape 1. Okay, so you see how I put in property group 2 in parentheses. That's not the right one because the output is 2, but this should be an index of 7. So I'm going to count up again to 3. And there you go. We got our 7. So this is referencing the right property and grabbing its index. So there you go. Now that we've tested that it's giving us 7, which it should be, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so prop index, the variable we created, prop index, is giving us the right number. Now, let's do a little bit of expression work. So how we want to play this. We want, let me click OK there and turn off. Okay, the expression's disabled. We got the little equal sign with the line through it. What we want this to eventually be is we want 50, right? And 50. 50 and 50, is that the right? Yeah. Let's go ahead and hide these shapes up above. We're going to be using them, but we don't want to see them. So let's take a look at this. So yeah, we want it to be 50 and 50, and each one, as we count down, is going to be just a little bit, we're going to count up from 50 using on the start, and we're going to count down from 50 on the end. So let me set it back to 50. So property index, there we go. And what we're going to do for the start is we're going to say 50 minus, and then let's do 1%, or we can do 2% each time. So times 2% times prop index. There you go, and the semicolon. And there you go. Since it's 7, it's doing 2 times 7. It's doing 50 minus 2 times 7. So it's doing 50 minus 17. You see it's all the way out here. So let's go ahead, and that looks good. Now we're going to copy this and click out, or if you click enter, it's going to do a literal enter. So what you want to do is click the enter on your number pad, or just click out. Now I'm going to click the stopwatch on end, paste the same thing. I'm going to drag it down, and instead of doing 50 minus, we're going to count up, so 50 plus. You see, there you go. And now we've got it counting out, and if we duplicate this, you'll see with each new duplication, it's getting further and further out. Cool. So that's the expansion taken care of. But how now do we take care of it getting thinner? Well, we basically do the same thing, except for counting down the trim paths, we're going to be counting down the stroke. So let's go ahead and open up our stroke property here. And let's go ahead and copy our prop index variable, because we're going to be using that in our stroke width here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the stroke width. Now, we want the stroke width, we want the size of the stroke width to be considered, because we needed to tell it where to start, right? We want this 37. We want to be able to change this. That's basically what I'm saying. So how do we grab this value? Well, all you have to do is write, I'm going to create a new variable. So variable var original width. And I'm using camel case here, which basically means the first word is undercase, and then any word that comes after is going to be uppercase. And a quick note, you can't put spaces in your variable name. So original width. And I'm going to set that equal to value. As simple as that. And that's going to basically say, okay, original width, how are we going to define this? Well, let's look at the value, which is right here. So right now, let's go ahead and set it equal to original width for right now. So it's looking at this value. Okay, so right now the value of our variable original width is 69. When I change this, okay, the variable is equal to 98. And so on and so forth. Whenever you change this, it updates the variable. So good. We now have a variable that's controlled by this. Now, what we have to do is tell it to count down every time the property index increases. So let's go ahead and paste our property index variable. And we're going to have to change around the count up on property group to reference our shape accurately. So I'm going to leave it at 3 right now in hopes that it'll work. What's it complaining about? Error at line 0, undefined value using the expression. Okay, so instead of writing value, you can grab this pick whip and just link it back to our value right there. So I'm gonna put a a semicolon after this, or actually, let's go a step further. Let's do one better here. So I'm going to click enter and get rid of our declaration of what original width is. So let's do one better. Let's go to the shape layer right here and let's add a dummy controller. So controller or control, just type control in the effects and presets panel and drag in a slider control. All right, and we're going to click on our slider control, hit enter on our keyboard and type in width. All right. And now we can assign our width property to our width slider. There you go. And it's going to give us, it's going to complain because this property group count up isn't right. So I'm going to play around with this. Maybe it's 4. Nope. For the time being, let's set our stroke width equal to our original width. We'll do some tapering calculations a little bit later. Original width. So we're setting our stroke equal to the original width. All right, and you see when we change the slider, it's updating our original width variable and therefore changing the output of the expression and therefore changing our stroke width. So I'm going to leave our width at, let's say 56 right now. Okay, and let's go ahead and now let's set our stroke equal to our prop index so we can find the right count up number. So prop index. All right, and do that. So right now it's 2, but this shape 1 isn't 2. So this shape 1 should have an index of 1. And let's duplicate it to an obscene number so we know when we get it, you know. This is going to be the only property index that has like an index of what, 11? Yeah. So I'm going to count up I'm going to count 5. Nope. So maybe it's 2. Maybe it was actually 2 from the beginning. Nope. 3 maybe. Yep. 3 was the right one because this turned to 11 right here. And this is, you know, without a doubt the only, this shape 1 is the only property in this entire layer that has an index of 11. There's 11 objects here. So good. Let me hide all these guys because we only want to see the one we're working with right now, which is shape 1. All right, so our property index is correct, and now we can start doing some calculations to taper it down as it goes along. So what we're going to be doing here is using the linear function. And the linear function basically says as one value goes from X to Y, then change the output from ranging to another set to another set. So there's a good explanation. You can find it in interpolation here. So linear here. So linear as an arbitrary variable, in this case t, goes from the maximum to a minimum value, then the output is going to go from a maximum that you state to a minimum that you state. If this doesn't make sense to you right now, you'll see what it's going to be doing in just a second. So as something goes from its max to its minimum, then change the output to range from an output maximum that you specify to a minimum that you specify. So what we're going to be doing here is writing linear as our property index goes from, we're going to leave this blank for now. So as our property index goes from a theoretical max to, or let's put a variable in there right now. We won't declare it quite yet, but so as property index goes from copies, or number of copies. So as it goes from the highest number of our shape 1 duplicates down to 0. So as we go from our highest count down to 0, we want to take the stroke from our original width. We want to take our stroke from original width down to 0, and that's basically what that expression does. And we need to now define number of copies right here, because it's an undefined variable and we haven't assigned anything to it yet. So let me just go ahead and copy him. Number of copies, and we're gonna do var number of copies equals, and when we duplicate, shape 1 gets put at the bottom, which is great because all we have to do is reference shape 1 and take its property index, and that's going to give us the number of copies. So right now, the property index of this is 11. Well, there's 11 copies. So if we reference the property index of the bottommost shape, then that will give us the number of copies effectively. So what I'm going to be doing is this comp, that's going to reference this composition, dot layer, and then I'm going to do 2 parentheses like that and put quotes in between it. Or actually, I don't have to. I'm going to do this comp dot layer dot index, and that's basically going to say this layer, because the layer with the index of this layer is this layer. So this comp dot layer, we're referencing this layer itself, and now we're going to do two close parentheses like this, and we're going to put 2 quotes inside of it, and then between those quotes we're going to put contents. And the reason why we're doing this is when you twirl down this layer, there's going to be a sub option for contents, and when you twirl down contents, we then get a list of these shapes. So we're basically saying this layer, go into the contents subcategory, and then do 2 parentheses again, 2 quotes, and inside these quotes put shape space 1. So we're saying go to this composition, go to this layer, twirl it down, go to contents, and then go to the shape 1, which is right here. And now all we have to do is say this, or all we have to do is put property index. Boom, there you go. We now get our number of copies variable equal to the bottommost duplicate, which is shape 1. And we're taking that property index, which is 11, which is effectively our number of copies. There you go. What's it say? Always look at your errors. Property index can't be used on this property. Okay, did we do it wrong? Is there another twirl down between contents and shape 1? Let's take a look. So you twirl it down, go to contents, and you go to shape 1. Did I spell it right? Okay, so this comp.layer index contents. shape1.propertyIndex. That should be correct. Give me a second. Maybe the because I know this is right. Maybe the variable is correct, but it's not accepting it in the linear function for some reason. So let me type in number of copies here. Oh, okay, so it is referencing it. So number of copies is equal to 11. But for some reason, the linear function isn't taking it. So did I spell it right? Let me just copy and paste it over just to make sure I spelled it right. Okay. Oh, you know what? I just put property index here instead of prop index. Oh my goodness. So when you're working expressions, there's a lot of troubleshooting involved. So that took me about 10 minutes or so to figure out. I'll probably cut that up, but look over what you write, especially there where I wrote property index. When I write property index all the way out, that's referencing this function that takes the property index and outputs it. It's a function, not a variable. But prop index is something that we've declared up here, which is very different from putting property index. So just make sure you're doing the right thing. So now what we have is linear. So as the property index, so property index is referencing the property index of the stroke, of the shape that contains the stroke. So as it goes, as the current index goes from the total number of duplicates, as it goes from the maximum down to the first one, each one will go from the original width. So being this one, this will be the original width, which is right now 56. And this will be a little bit less, this will be a little bit less, until it finally gets to 0. And there you go. When we click enter, it does it. And the reason why nothing shows up right now is because this is the last one, and it's at 0. So sorry, I did that backwards. It doesn't start from original and then go down to 0. It starts from the original up top and then goes down to 0. So right now this width is 0 because this is the original width, and we haven't showed it because we're working with the expressions end here. So when we enable this, it won't do anything because all the expressions we've been doing are in this one. All these have the expressions, the outdated expressions from whenever we duplicated. So let's go ahead and delete them and start reduplicating them. And there you go. Look at that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the basis of it. Now you see it's looking a little steppy. It's looking a little steppy right now, and the reason for that is we need to bring down the interval at which the trim paths is extending. So in order to do that, all we have to do is let's get rid of these duplicates, because we're only updating the expressions on shape 1 and we're duplicating off that. So every time we change something, we have to get rid of all the duplicates and start over and make our changes in shape 1. So let's go to our trim paths right here. It's already open. And let's go ahead and set, instead of going 2 every time a new duplicate, let's go 1 every time we make a new duplicate. So let's go ahead and do 1 for both these guys. And let's go ahead and start duplicating and see how it looks. There you go. It's still looking a little steppy, so instead of doing 1, let's do half of 1. Why don't we? So let's go down here, delete our duplicates, and change it. Instead of 1, let's do 0.5. 0.5 and 0.5. Now instead of going in here and changing this every time, you can actually make a slider, right? And name it step resolution. Step resolution, and put it to 0.5 because that's where we're at right now. And literally just do this. Get rid of your 0.5 in the expression and pick whip this guy. There you go. Now, whenever we change the slider, it'll change our step resolution. So we don't have to worry about deleting our duplicates, coming back here and changing it. Easy, right? So let's go ahead and make our duplicates. and this is going to be width 0.5, and you'll see we've got a nice tapered line. Pretty neat, huh? And it's looking a little steppy, so let's bring it down to 0.3, and this will also be a good controller of like the taper amount. You know what I'm saying? Because if you change down the step resolution, it's pushing them closer and closer together. And there you go. So that's that. And I'm pressing Control D to duplicate these guys. D, Control D. And you see we have our dude there. Now, how do we animate it? It's on the path, right? It's on our path. How do we animate? Actually, I'm not moving the path. I'm just changing the scale. Sorry, my bad. And we got to make it so that we can change the path, and it'll update the paths on all of these duplicate guys, not just our first one. So let's do those two things, and I think that we'll be absolutely complete with it by then. So we're going to make a new slider control on this guy, and we're going to name this Travel Offset. There you go. It's at 0 right now. And all we have to do is go to our trim paths, and there's not really any expression writing to be done. All we have to do is alt click on this guy and pick whip our travel offset. Easy. We don't have to do any calculations. It's just literally what this travel offset is. That's what we want to set our offset to. And if you don't remember what the offset does, it basically moves the trim paths around the path. So that was easy enough. Now all we have to do is make it so that we can update our path later on. So if we get on here to path, you'll see that has a stopwatch, and of course we can add expressions to it. But there are no expressions that will define, like I can't just write 0.1, set that equal to 0, 0. Actually, I'm not even sure that won't work. Actually, that won't work. But you can't do that. So what do we do? Well, what we can do with the expression is pick whip it to another path. Here's where things get kind of cool. So what if we were to put a mask on here that we picked whip this path to? Every time we make it a duplicate, each one of the new paths would reference that mask, and when we change the mask, the path would update. So you can't make a mask on a shape layer directly because it's just going to think you're making a new shape, right? It made a new shape here. So you can't do that. Actually, does holding shift while doing it make a... No. There must be some sort of keyboard combination to make a path on there, but I'm not sure of it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to create a new solid here. And it doesn't really matter. We're going to be deleting it in a second. But I'm going to make a... let's actually make it something that'll look nice with the sweep, I guess. So... there you go. And I'm not going to close it off. And basically, we're going to hit MM to pull down our mask. And I'm going to copy that mask. And I'm going to paste it on our shape layer. There you go. Now our mask is on the shape layer. You can get rid of the solid. And let's go ahead and bring up the path. I'm going to search for path. And you'll see we have our mask here. I'm just going to rename that by pressing enter on it. I'm going to rename it to master path. And all we have to do now is alt click on the stopwatch of our shape path and basically say make our shape path the same as our mask path. Boom. Done. Easy. And now all we want to do is update this mask path every time we want to change where the sweep's moving and what it's doing. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Let's go ahead and make a whole bunch of duplicates of our shape and make our sweep. This is how we'll make our sweep, and there you go. And that's that. And now when we change the travel offset, you'll see that it moves it. And let's hide our mask path, and there you go. Pretty dang neat. There were a lot of concepts that went into this, and they're probably going to be confusing for a good majority of you, but if you really spend the time to look over this tutorial and understand why I wrote the things I did and why I went into the expressions that I did, then you'll find that really valuable. And if you want to learn expressions from the ground up with a traditional learning format, instead of learning from examples like I'm trying to do, I highly recommend watching startup tutorials on YouTube about like expression basics. And if you really want to go one further, I highly recommend watching lynda.com tutorials on After Effects expressions. You don't have to. You can obviously learn all this stuff on YouTube, which is free. I'm not sponsored by lynda.com. I personally, that's the route that I went, and it's very helpful. And I just want to give you guys like accurate information. So that's what I used, and it was very helpful. I also did a lot of YouTube tutorials before I knew about Lynda, and that gave me a very fundamental understanding of expressions. But that watching all the lynda.com stuff like really took it a step further, and that's when I really started to understand things. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by them. I actually submitted an application, see if I could get like sponsored by them. It would be great because I love them and I love to promote them, and I'd love for you guys to get discounts and stuff. But we'll see how that turns out. They probably won't accept my application, but who knows? So there's that. Real quick, I'm going to do two little cleanup things. Right now you can't change the color. So what I'm going to do is put it in a color control. So if you go up here to effects and presets and drag it in a color control, that's basically going to do that. And then when we go down to our shape, twirl that open, let's go to our stroke, and you'll see there's one for color here. Alt click that, pick whip it to the color. Easy. Now when we duplicate this, it'll be red, and whatever we change this to, it'll update all of our duplicates, which is really nice. And finally, I'm free to duplicate now because I don't think I need to change anything else. And the more duplicates you have, the longer it'll get. That's basically how it goes. And what we can do now is right click on this guy and go to Layer Styles and Bevel and Emboss. And let's zoom in here to see what we're doing. So the bevel and emboss gives it an interesting look, and I'll show you in just a second. So if you go to your layer styles, swivel it down, go to bevel and emboss here. Let's go ahead and change it from smooth to chisel hard. Okay, that's one step closer. Highlight opacity, I'm going to bring that down to 0. And then the shadow opacity, I'm going to put to like 50 or something. And then I'm going to bring our size all the way up to like 300 or something. And now when you play with the shadow opacity, you'll see it gets this sort of three-dimensional look, which I think is very nice. And yeah, that's I don't know what else to say about that. If you want, you can add another slider control right here and say like shading amount, and pick whip the shadow opacity to that guy. And there you go. You can change how deeply shadowed it is. So you don't have to go down here and go into your layer styles every time you want to change it. And that's all, folks. I'm sure there's a million and one ways to improve this. Of course, you don't want to delete the mask. So let me get my pen tool, and I'll hold control to delete that guy, and you'll see it updates. So you don't want to delete this path completely. You can take it down to 2 points, and then from there, I'm going to alt click this guy to turn it into a linear, and alt click, or you don't want to close it either. So I mean, yeah, I guess you could close it, but it would defeat the purpose. So you always want to leave 2. But from there on, you can leave this in like a dummy project and copy it over to whatever intro you're working on, and you'll have this guy. And you'll feel free to work with it and do whatever you want. And yeah, if you want it to like disappear, you can go to the symbol choker here, and then just animate the choke going down to 0. There's a more systematic way to do this with expressions, but just for ease of use, you can use the choker to make it go away as it reaches the end of its distance. let me just, while we're here, it's a long enough tutorial, so a few minutes won't matter. Let's have a little fun and animate it, why not? So let's go to travel paths over here, and then we'll go over our shaw, go like that, and then where's our choker? There he is. And then as he goes here, or let me bring it up my keyframes by pressing U, and I'm going to ease it in and out using motion 2. Of course, you can right click and go to velocity and put it at 50%. All right. Or in this case, I guess 58%. Yep. And there you go. So if we play that back, it'll basically just do the animation of it going from point to point, and then we'll animate the choker to make it disappear as it gets there. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now all we have to do is animate the choke. So I'll put the choke mat at 0, and we'll move that out. So we want it to reach 0, but right now we want it to be completely gone. So right there, 71, when does it start showing up? Okay, right around there. All right, so 60, and then I'm gonna copy our 60 and put it down at the end, and then we'll put the choke to 0 right here. And I guess we'll ease them just regular, or I'll put it down to like 34 or something. All right, and let me play back. And you'll see it might want to start fading it out a little bit sooner, or choking it out, I guess. It sounds weird. There you go. So it has time to get moving before it starts appearing. There you go. Very nice. I like the way that looks. Yeah, there you go. Very nice. And yeah, you can feel free to duplicate this guy and move him down, so you get like a kind of like a raptor slashing claw effect or something. And of course you can make these do pirouettes and circles and stuff all over your logos, and yeah, it's versatile, which I think is really cool. And animate away to your heart's desire. You can change colors to all that. And that's Expression Through Examples, episode 1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If it was confusing, I apologize. Hopefully for most of you, you understood. And at the very least, you can follow along and make this cool asset to use in your intros. Big thanks to Sketch for inspiring this tutorial. And of course, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer down in the comments below. Either me or someone else who understands expressions well enough will, I'm sure, be happy enough to answer you. If you enjoyed this tutorial, it gave you some sort of insight, or you learned something, I'd appreciate leaving a like, maybe subscribing for more stuff like this. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. for a cool outro design I made for Silpligator. I think you guys will like it, so I encourage you guys to check that out when it comes out tomorrow. And that's pretty much that. Thank you guys for watching. It's kind of a long tutorial, but hopefully you stuck through it. And I will see you guys next weekend for another After Effects tutorial. All right, peace. Take care. Have a nice week, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.